Hey everybody, welcome to another segment of Tony's show. And today is another day in paradise. The year has started off, and I'm going to continue a little bit on the theme I talked about the night before, last show. And I want to start off with the Canadian government. Old Canada, or should I say Old Canada? Canada. It's got a name to it, doesn't it? Canada. It's like something out of a Shogun movie or something. Canada. Anyway, the Canadian government was asked, under the Freedom of Information Act, response regarding to the isolations of SARS, to validate if there's any information that has any substantiation or fact, any kind of science, anything, that this even exists. And the Canadian government responded by saying they have no such evidence. Imagine that. All this bullshit that we've gone through with nothing but what? Hyperbole? What if? A fantasy? The Canadian government is saying that they have no fact on this. None. Oh, Canada or Canada. Is that Canada irritating anybody? Because it sure as hell irritates me. The CCP has got Canada, you see. We have been under this assault by an external force to force us to bow down to some demonic shit that we have no business bowing down to. Period. It's a wonder. And I was talking today to a bunch of different people that are on my Skype. And we were talking and communicating about different topic, subject matter all day long. The subject matter was all over the place. And we figure about 70 to 75%, maybe even higher, has bought into the Kool-Aid. Drink your Kool-Aid with your cyanide. It's okay. You won't feel a thing. There's a cartoon where a herd of cattle are jumping off the cliff, and somebody's saying something's not right about this. And another cow is saying, "Just do as you're told. It's for your own good." And that's about what's happening. The bulk of the population is heading over a cliff. Bad and fast. And quickly. I was told this week that Windsor and Toronto are the two worst cities in Ontario for compliance. We have a bullshit button, and I think everybody who's in these cities that are not wearing masks or following the edicts their button's broken. Then I seen something in Quebec. Something that was alarming. The police have no effing brain in Quebec. None. They got to be the dumbest of the dumb. They responded to a call about people that were in a house supposedly having a party. There were only 6 people in the house. And the police officer reached into the house, breaking the law, and grabbing somebody from the house and threw him outside. Now, can you believe this shit? Now, instead of the police asking and seeking if there's any validation or verification of the situation, they acted in an unprofessional way. They acted like some dictatorship, like all of a sudden they had power, unlimited power. This better be put in check soon, because Canada does not know what kind of can of worms this is going to open up. They have no idea. Canada does not have the military capability to stop a revolution in this country. They don't. The 3,000, whatever it is, the 3 million Boy Scouts that we have are not going to stop a population of 30 million. And if they bring the CPC over here, the CCP over here, all they're going to do is put a coal on the fire. They have no idea what they're going to open up. They really don't. They think for the most part Canadians are very placid and easygoing, and you can shit on them any way you like. They may be in for one rude awakening on this. And I'm not saying this to incite anything, because that's not what I'm doing. I'm specifying the facts. The one thing that the Canadian government, in its arrogance and its pompous attitude, has overlooked is the neighbors south of the border. Every time the government got involved and stimulated a situation where the police began to harass people aggressively, picking on the Negroes in specific cities, they wound up seeing the city completely burnt down to the ground. Look at Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan has never recovered from the 1967 riots, and it never will. Never will. That situation that occurred back then, because of the racial profiling that was going on, created such a dynamic in the city of Detroit, it will never, ever recover. The city of Detroit will become an extinct city before it ever comes back to life. And by that time, everybody that has known anything about the history of Detroit will all be dead. And I'm not saying that to knock Detroit. I'm just saying that because of what has occurred historically in that city, it never will recover. Canada will never recover. If Montreal, Quebec City, should have a revolution of some kind, and they burn those cities down, they will never, ever recover at all. If Ottawa was to burn itself down, it will never, ever recover. If Toronto destroys itself, that's a done deal there. That will never see the light of day. All that wealth, all that housing costs, those overpriced and overinflated houses will never see the light of day, ever. Because once you stimulate that kind of revolution in people, even the government is subjected to a fall, a big fall. And what will replace it will be under a heavy-handed view by the people themselves. Nobody in America that's ever lived in a ghetto or from a slum or in any area that's been oppressed will tell you right straight out that they trust the government. None of them will. The only people that have any trust in the government are those people living in the middle class or high middle class status financially, because they've never seen the other side of the coin. They've always had whatever they've had, or they've come from poverty and they've forgotten where they come from. So what happened in Quebec was unconscionable. And I watched it. I was stunned for 2 days seeing a family traumatized because of a holiday season. We are not China. Fuck China. That's what I got to say about that. Fuck China. We are not China. This is Canada. And in Canada, like I said, I'm not one of these guys that believe in the ho, ho, ho and the Merry Christmas concept. But I do believe that we have family and we get together with family so that we can, because we don't spend time with each other as family members anymore, because the way we live has spread the families and split the families and take them all over the place. Before, families used to live in communities, and basically networks of families would grow in those communities, and everybody would always be in contact, close contact. This thing about China, everybody thinks China is so powerful. China is SFA. Let me tell you about what's going on in China. China now is having a problem recruiting young men to serve in the PLA. Their form of the military. Majority of the males are saying they don't want to serve. Some have gotten out. And what China is doing now is they're making those who leave the service, stripping them of any opportunity to work or integrate with the system. They are having problems in China. They are not as strong as they appear to be. In fact, I think their infrastructure is coming unglued. All this wealth that they've accumulated has been off the backs of the Chinese people, and they made them slaves. They made them work for hardly anything, worked them really hard so they could develop the system that they have. And now they're having problems with people buying into the bullshit over there. And our Prime Minister wants to adapt the Chinese concept of this totalitarian system they have. If he moves into a realm where he wants to stay Prime Minister forever, no more elections, then this country is done if he gets away with it. You know what they say, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, he's a little bit far from Fidel. I mean, after all, his father is from Cuba. And so as a communist, with a communist mentality, c'est la vie. It's just the way it is. And so, like I said, when I saw this going on in Quebec, family members being traumatized by the police, they should sue the living shit out of that police force. Is what they should do. Because none of that was warranted. None of that was even validated. None of that was even verified. None of it. That should be the lawsuit of the century, what happened there. Now, we have to really pay attention in this country because it appears that the rule of law and the rights of individuals, pay attention to that terminology, the rights of individuals. Remember that terminology, rights of individuals? Did you hear that, rights of individuals? Why am I repeating this? Because the majority of you think in terms of, when you're talking about yourself, it's always used in the plurality. We, us, them. It's you never say me. When you're talking about yourself, do you ever use the word I or me? And you know why you don't? Because you've been programmed that if you speak in that term or in that tone, that you're arrogant, you're prideful, whatever. But when you're speaking in the first person, which is yourself, in a conversation, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that you're explaining something of what you did. There's no we and I. They used to say that. There was no old concept about, there's no I in team. I used to always say, when they used to say that to me, there's no I in team. I says, yes, well, when the team pays my bills, when the team pays my mortgage, when the team buys my groceries, then there will no longer be an I in team. But until that happens, I am taking care of myself. I work for me. I don't work for the team. I am here to make money, not to capitulate to some horseshit ideology of team. See, they've been slowly but surely eroding the idea of I, me, in the context of you as an individual. See, when you start talking, you'll catch yourself now that I said this. When you're referring to yourself, you'll say, well, we are, we did, and us, and them, whatever. But you won't use the term I or me or myself. I myself went to work today. I myself went and earned some money. I myself am paying my own bills. I myself am taking care of me. Now, there's nothing arrogant about that. There's nothing prideful about that. There's nothing in there indicating that whatsoever, any kind of haughtiness at all. That is a fact of life. That is a reality. But they are taking away our individuality in Canada. We say we are Canadians, which is true. If anybody lives in Canada and we're referring to ourselves as a country, we are Canadians. But if I'm referring to myself as a Canadian, I am a Canadian. Okay, so there's a distinction. There's I and there's a we. But I and we have to be used appropriately. So those Canadians in Quebec were violated in a hostile way because somebody reported them. Now, what may happen, there's this possibility, and I'm sure it may cross their minds. They may find out who made the call. Someone's going to get a beating. as Peter Russell used to say, someone's going to get a beating. I mean, the women, the mother and the grandmother that was there, or wherever they were, aunts or whatever, they were just traumatized. Just traumatized. And like I said, as Canadians, we and myself need to pay attention to the fact that our individuality in this country is being removed. So we can become a collective like Canada or like China. Say we're either Canadian or Canada. What would you rather be? Have a bowl of rice and some chopsticks? Oh, bowl of rice. Chopstick. Chop, chop, chop. Or would you rather be a Canadian eating a steak? Which, by the way, then before we go any further on that, steak. Steak does a body good. Meat's good for you. Contrary to the nonsense that you've been told by the gurus or vegans and vegetarians really don't care whether you eat meat or not. Vegetarians will eat chicken or fish or eggs or dairy, which I have no problem with. If you're saying you're vegetarian and eat those foods, I think you're eating a balanced diet. If you're saying a vegan, well, basically you're just like another cow, goat, or sheep out in the field chewing the cud. And you have no digestive system to break down the phytates, the saponins, or the high fiber in the diet. You won't adjust. In fact, over a couple years, the law of diminishing returns will bite you in the ass. But those of us who eat meat, and this is for us, or all of us, including me, myself and I eat meat because I know meat is good for you. I know meat has vital nutrients in it that can keep my body strong and healthy. It's a very high source of vitamin B12, B vitamins, iron, and protein, which our body requires for regeneration and repair. Now, the Zionists in Israel are developing a genetically engineered or genetically and nanobiological construct of meat. I mentioned this the other day. This will have consequences. The consumption of a 3D printing designer food. This is a weapon being developed over there and going to be marketed to the rest of the world in the name of saving the earth. So the earth is going to die. The earth is going to die because cows are farting out of their arse. The earth is going to die because chickens are farting out of their arse. The earth is going to die because sheep are farting out of their arse. Oh, there goes the greenhouse gas. We're going to die. Amazing. Amazing. And this comes from Star Trek, the first one. Remember the replicators and how they used to replicate food and meat? Well, that was a nano construct. Again, they were showing us all this crap way back in the day under the guise of science fiction. And when you look at this and you see the video, you're going to see it's a designer weapon. A designer nanobiological weapon. And some of you might get a little upset because I use the term Zionist. Well, the Zionists really are part of a bigger cabal, and I'm going to show that on the future shows. I'm going to show you a diagram, and Zionists are mentioned in there. They're part of a big group or organization in the world, and they are designed with in conjunction with their collaborators to wipe us out. I've often said many a time, mark my words, that they will wipe out Israel. The people of Israel are believing that the Zionists are taking care of them. See, the one thing that I have learned in this life, not everything is what it appears, and everything has been inverted. Everything. What we are feeling confident and safe and secure in is the most unstable, shaky ground anybody could walk on. It's all based on presumptions. It's all based on hollow promises. Okay, you remember the RSPs and the RRSPs? Remember those? Okay, I remember when they first initiated them back in the 80s under Brian Mulroney, and I forget the finance minister. And the RSPs were designed, if you put your money in an RRSP or RSP, it was tax-free money. But You didn't pay the taxes when you put it in. You paid the taxes when you took it out. And they taxed you heavily when you pulled the money out of your RSP, because now if you had saved it according to them for 20 to 40 or 40 years, you'd be a millionaire when you retire. So if you were 20 years old, by the time you're 60, you'd be a millionaire. Now imagine that. Now that sounds like a pretty good deal. $1,000,000, right? There's no chance you're going to spend it all before you die. Chances are you bought your house, paid it off, your kids are gone through college, you paid that off, whatever house you have is paid off, whatever car you have is paid off. You're pretty well debt free. And now you have money in the bank, which allows you to enjoy your life. But now, that was all based on a hollow promise. Now those RSPs are subject to government takeout. And the banks, money is disappearing out of these accounts. And pensions are disappearing because the government now is dipping into the well and taking the money. They're stealing it. The money that was designed for everybody to live on, to enjoy their retirement, is now being taken away because the government now wants to take away all our wealth, all our homes, all our properties, everything that we've ever worked for, everything that we've ever strived for. They want to take it over so that we all own nothing. Sound like China or China? They own nothing, and now the government has full control over all valuable assets that are out there today. Imagine that. And in the name of Corona, in the name of Corona or COVID, the COVID spirit, ooh, it's coming for you. They are now going to steal that money in the name of saving you, in the name of building quarantines, in the name of building gulags, in the name of violating your personal rights and freedoms, in the name of taking away your individuality. Because once they take away your wealth, once they take away your ability to have money in your possession, once they take away your ability to spend money as you see fit, you are no longer in any way, shape, or form free. You don't have freedom now. At that point, you're just nothing but a dog on a leash. That's it. A dog on a leash. And they can now leash you in, and they can now hit a button because you've been vaccinated. See, this is the deal. We take away your debt. You can have your freedom. You can walk outside. You can be a restricted, law-abiding citizen. We can now tell you when to walk, when to talk, when to shit, when to piss, when to wipe your arse, when to eat, when to sleep. You will be just like Orwell 1984. Remember that? Got up in the morning, seen some program where they had to exercise. They walked downstairs to the cafeteria. They ate that soy-based meat that they had there, that synthetic shit that they're building in Israel. And they ate it, and one guy says, I know this is not meat. It tastes like meat, feels like meat, but I know this is not meat. And the one guy said, wasn't touching. He said, do you want, can I have yours? He said, yeah, go ahead. And what did they do in the Orwell 1984 movie? If you haven't watched the original one. As people got older and were in the system, and had served the system faithfully, one by one they were hijacked and sabotaged in some form or fashion, and then they were arrested and broken and destroyed. Welcome to Canada, eh? That's what they're planning for you. This Orwellian Chinada mentality. And some of you might think I'm being negative. Well, I wouldn't call it negative when you're telling the truth. I will say this, though. If people stand up and start reading again and start looking at literature again, not literature, I shouldn't say that, start reading things in the context of what's really happening, like I just started off with the show with the freedom of information, and you can see the article right there, and again, you can pass it on, that the government has absolutely no fact, nothing to substantiate what's going on right now. Nothing. So what is that telling you about the government of Canada? They are a lawless government. Lawless. And they are taking away everything that you thought you had. That's why I said everything's been based on presumption. Everything is inverted. You think you got money for your retirement? Guess again. You think you have a secure job? Guess again. You think you own your own home? Guess again. They are going to take it all. I remember George Carlin. When he did his skit one time, he was saying that they're going to get everything. They're going to get everything. They're going to, and what they're going for now is your Social Security benefits. And they'll get it, he said. Oh, they'll get it. Well, guess what, Canada? That was America. Now it's happening here. They're going for your Social Security, not Social Security. They're going for your retirement. They're going for your pensions. And you know what? They're going to get it. You know why they're going to get it? I'll tell you why they're going to get it. Because if you're stupid enough and idiotic enough to believe that there's a boogeyman out there that can kill you, and that mask is going to protect you from the boogeyman, then they're going to get it. Because mask will not stop a virus. I don't give a shit what virus it is. Whether it's a normal flu, whether it's pneumonia, whether it's any kind of super duper pooper trooper alien from outer space flu, that mask will do sweet F-A. That's the bottom line. And if they got you believing that bullshit, you know what? I got some Canadian cheese to sell you on the dark side of Uranus. And I got some Martians that will bring it back to you on the moon. And if you believe that, I got another one to tell you. They're going to get it. They're going to get your pensions. They're going to get everything from you that they can get. You aren't going to own any land. You aren't going to own your cars. You aren't even going to own the clothing that's on your back. They're going to get it all. And you know what? Majority of you will say, oh, that's okay. About 70%. The other 30% that have some sort of brain in their head are going to say, no, it's not. And there will be and I do believe in my own mind, there will be a more perfect union formed by the people who are awake. I do believe that. And I do believe they will be armed and they'll be ready to defend their rights. I believe that as well. And that's in Canada. I do believe that. So there's your positive. But you know what? It's going to have to get down to the nitty-gritty. It's going to have to get down to where it's really, really bad. And it's going to have to get down where those people who are awake and believe in the living God or have a belief or a faith are going to be prepared to lay down their lives, because that's where it's going to come down to. That's what it's going to come down to. Like I said, when this breaks out and they're going to push it and they're going to make a mistake, and you know what? I hope it's in Ottawa when it happens. Not that I wish anything bad on Ottawa, but I wish it happens there. We will see what the federal government is going to do then. Where are they going to hide? In a bunker. Imagine that. Imagine that, eh? Now they're talking as well about the brain having COVID damage. It is such a bunch of bullshit. If you go on my website, augmentinforce.com, there's a link there called nanotoxicity. And in there they talk about how nanoparticles are in our brain, causing severe brain damage to occur in our brain. Now they went and swabbed people with these nanobots that are at the edge of these swab tips. And so when we're looking at those nanobots that are getting into the brain, they are causing the holes in the brain. Imagine that. Imagine that. And now they want to blame that on COVID as well. If anybody has seen the movie But year 2023, and again, this is the bullshit and the propaganda that they're promoting here on this. If people stay stupid, this will happen. If people stay stupid, this will happen. But 2023, they still got people isolated. Isolated to a point now where they can't even go outside. Food has to be delivered to them. All controlled bullshit. Welcome to Canada 2023. And the Hopkins report is saying by 2028, people will be still wearing a mask. You know what that is saying? That they've already predicted that people are going to be so effing stupid and so down and dumbed down that will continue to believe the nonsense even though they're not seeing any results. In the last 60 years, they have been vaccinating us, supposedly taking away all these diseases. They have cured all these diseases. And yet, we're all dying from those diseases. You think maybe, perhaps, just possibly, that their shit doesn't work? We got this idea, and I don't know how we can be comfortable with this idea and complicit with this idea that we have scientists today that seem to know what they're doing. We got scientists today that don't know sweet FA. They don't know nothing. And we've got scientists today that are designing the very problems that we're having today. That's all they do. They work all day long trying to create things that are going to give us health issues. Did it ever occur to anybody, okay, I'm talking people from my era of time, did it ever occur to anybody that in the 1990s, every year we had a different type of flu? Hong Kong flu, Chinese flu, Korean flu, Indonesian flu, Chinese flu, Taiwan flu, Vietnamese flu. Every year we had a different flu. You just notice that? Go back and do a little history research on that. Every freaking year. That was the year Detroit Red Wings won the decade Detroit Red Wings won 3 Stanley Cups. Ask me how I know. At the time I was watching hockey. My point is, and that was the distraction, believe it or not. That was a big distraction. Detroit winning the Stanley Cup 3 times in a decade. And they had made the playoffs almost every year that year. It's sort of a coincidence, just thinking out loud. But when we're looking at every year a different kind of pathology, doesn't that kind of strike you as odd that perhaps these viruses were created? Doesn't it make you think, How is it that the coronavirus that was released in 1963 didn't kill any of us then, unless you had an already compromised immune system? How is it that we developed the antibody? And how is it we were able to pass an antibody to our offspring? And how is it that you have a 99.9% survival rate that you need a vaccine or a mask? Imagine that. Why is that? Why is that? So, like I said, if you're not in the moment and you're still believing in some la-la bullshit, that you think that your life is so wonderful, that your life has all this, you have a life, you think you have a life, and you don't understand the nature of what's going on today, how we are losing all our rights, all our civil liberties, how in Canada a family can be assaulted the way they were because they had a family gathering and the police did not even try to initiate an inquiry of what's going on. Just listen to some bullshit from some phone call, unless perhaps the phone call came from a superior of theirs saying, we need you to go out there and harass the family, pick anyone you want and go after them. Maybe that's what actually happened. And if you think That's not possible. Wake up and smell the coffee. Either that or take your head out of your arse and try to breathe some and take the mask off while you're at it so you can breathe some fresh air for a change. There's another video out that came out where a guy took a mask, and when he took the mask, he apparently he decided to put it in cold temperature. And what happened was the powders and the debris in the mask actually congested even more. They agglomerated, and so while you're outside, and this is this other thing I can't imagine people being this intelligent, walking outside with a mask on, allowing the materials inside the mask to solidify more because your moisture is wicking into the mask, which then would solidify, causing those particulates to become more densified and allowing you to breathe in those particles. Imagine that. And then you wonder why you're going to be dead from pneumonia by summer. Some of you, I'm predicting this, again, based on what I'm seeing, but a lot of people wearing these masks right now, and they've been continually wearing these masks since last March, will probably be dead by May or early June because of the accumulation of the poisons in the mask. And they're going to wind up with pneumonia. Not COVID, not corona. The boogeyman's not going to be there. Oh no. And not that COVID, that alien from outer space. Ooh. It's going to be pneumonia. Pneumonia will be killing a lot of you. And that pneumonia will be coming from the debris and the chemical reactions that have, again, that have combined in the particulate matter that you're breathing in. You are destroying your life. They are creating the very thing they're telling you that is going to protect you. They're creating the pandemic. I told you at the beginning of the show, everything in this life is inverted. When they tell you that wearing a mask is going to do blah, 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 then think in terms of a 180. Wearing that mask is going to cause me severe damage to my brain, my respiratory system, and my immune system, and possibly my DNA. That's what that's going to do. Now, I was looking at something else just a little earlier, and they found that when you give people the flu shot, and who gets the flu shot? Who gets the flu shot? The people that don't need it. People in their 60s do not need a flu shot. They don't work on you. They don't work on any of us in our 60s. Because we already have an immune system already built up over time, that these shots have very little impact on our immune system other than to break us down. Now, they found that people who took the flu shot had the highest mortality rate of the so-called corona. But the reality is they had a high mortality rate to the corona because the doctors were, again, injecting or testing the elderly people with these swabs that had this nanobiology involved in there. They had no immune system to fight it. Zero. They even say in the article, they had said in the article that the flu did more damage than protection. Doesn't it sound like the H1N1? Remember that when the head of the CDC came out? You can go look it up. The head of the CDC came out when the H1N1 was going on and said that the flu was less dangerous than the vaccine. Imagine that. That was their face-saving spokesman that saved the day, because if they had continued with that H1N1 today, they would have had a revolt. And so now they prepared this bullshit. And in another 10 or 15 years, if this doesn't work, they'll create another one. The one thing that I'm going to tell you about science, and let me reiterate this shit about science. Science, and I'll say this again, all it can do is understand God's creation and how it functions. That's really the best they can do. When they start tampering with creation and trying to modify it, all that winds up happening is a backlash or blowback. of their effect. They haven't cured a damn thing since the early 1920s. Nothing. Anybody that found any cure in any way, shape, or form, this is before Rockefeller decided to shut down any kind of alternative healing or health that would interfere with his profits, with this so-called pharmacopoeia that he propagated. The allopathic field is the most useless field ever. Hasn't figured nothing out, hasn't healed nothing, hasn't fixed nothing. They can set a bone, they can put it in a cast, but in the end, it's you, that your body that heals. Give your body what it needs, it will perform accordingly. Okay. But the pharmacopoeia, the science of today, has never cured anything. And then I found something else which is on the later show, and I'll give you you'll have the link later. A doctor came out and he said the same thing I said a couple shows ago, that they have a cure for everything. They do. A lot of references that I've looked at very early historical references dating way back in the 1800s on some of the things that I seen that they used back then that seem to have worked on curing or healing people of their ailments. That's when medicine had actually believed in the Hippocratic oath, where they swore an oath to God that they would serve the public in an honorary way to find any means or methods that would help find a cure to help them recover, not to enslave them or to even seduce any of their patients. Okay, and so back then they had things that worked. They really did. But after Rockefeller got in there, he made it almost impossible to get access to that data, or if he did have access to that data, he would call it quackery, so that he could protect his investment. Well, since this has arisen, the allopathic field, the pharmaceutical industry, has never ever cured anybody of anything. We're not living longer. We're actually living shorter. We have lost almost 17 years off of our lifespan. The average lifespan was going to be around 86, if I'm not mistaken. And it's now down to 69 years. What happened to those 17 years? Wow, whatever happened to the concept of we're going to live longer as time went on? Because the eugenists saw that we were going to be living longer, and as a result of us living longer, there was going to be less for them. And as a result, less for them meant that they were not going to be in control. So they decided to create things that were going to shorten your lifespan. Well, this doctor even said that. They allowed cancer to flourish. They even created the cancer so that people would die of cancer. So you may as well die of cancer as anything else. Imagine that. Medical doctor specifying this. See, we have surrendered our individuality a long time ago when we believed that doctors and priests and police officers and government officials were infallible. When we put them on a pedestal and we made them equal to God, that was the beginning of the end. The Bible has told us not to put faith in man because man would betray you and man would hurt you and man and whatever. And it's true, every time we have put our faith in men and women in power, they have always let us down. Always. And I would say, in America, the last real president you had was John F. Kennedy. And after he made that speech about secret societies, they took him out. They assassinated him. They had the CIA with seven snipers to take him out, at least 7. And they even projected this magic bullet that went through his body, came back, and went back inside. If they actually had that technology back then, where they could put a genetic code into a bullet so that if the bullet did go out and come back, it would have to be a rocket-propelled bullet. Other than that, that bullet, that would have been a myth or a fairy tale. But if they did have that technology, and we're just hearing about it in the last 10 years, what do you think they might have now? How much shit is up in the air that we just can't see because it's cloaked under some sort of stealth technology? How much shit do you think is even walking around beside us that we don't even see or understand, that because it's beyond our frequency range of vision? What's really out here today? We really don't know. And that's not to sound paranoia in any way, shape, or form, or to make you paranoid. I'm just trying to get you to think a little bit. If they did have that tech, if that tech really did exist back then, which I don't know for sure, I'm somewhat skeptical about it myself, but if they really did have, and I'm just coming with some sort of plausibility here, okay, what did they got today? We would never know it. I just read the other day that now they have drones that fly in stealth mode and then can appear when they're ready to attack. In other words, you wouldn't even know what's coming until it was on top of you. So like I said, we need to, again, get off this nonsense that your government gives a shit about you, because they don't. I'll tell you what they care about is power. And what they really care about is ultimate power. And as long as you stay quiet, you are giving them permission to proceed in attaining that goal. That's the bottom line. I was talking the other day about mind control in music. So what I decided to do, I decided to pick some different songs, highlight the lyrics, and so that you could see the predictive programming and what they were planning to do. This comes off under the Silver Lake. I talked about that the other day, where the guy was explaining to the young man that everything that he knew, everything he believed, every way he talked, walked, the way he dressed was all controlled by these frequencies and the lyrics that they had put into those frequencies. They had him under complete control just with the music alone. This is why I don't involve myself with too much media. It says, I wrote here, you see the predictive programming, and the orator was correct in explaining how beyond their comprehension the person was at the level of control had already established with just music. Having gone through that and growing up and then looking back at all of this, all of it was a effery on the nth degree. I went through it. I grew up in it. Okay, and I can tell you straight out, they had our heads spun, literally. We were doing drugs and medications that we had no business touching. They were trying to make us so stupid and to open us up in ways so that we wouldn't be inhibited. That whole free sex thing that happened in the 1960s, that was all a drug control program. They released all kinds of drugs that took away the inhibitions of people. The sexual revolution did hit, but it wasn't as pronounced as it seemed, according to what I read. Now, in my area, everybody I knew but in high school was pregnant. All the women I knew, one year I went to school, by the next summer when I came back, they all had bubble bellies. What have you been doing? Have you been knocking knees and bumping bellies? You know, and this was common. This was almost as common as breathing back then. And it wasn't just my high school, it was everywhere you went. You looked around and there were 16-year-olds getting pregnant. You know, they decided to expand their horizons, open their minds, and they did. They opened something else too. Let me read this. 1979, this is the date this came out. The dream police, they live inside of my head. The dream police, they come to me in my bed. The dream police, they're coming to arrest me. Oh no. You know, that talk is cheap and those rumors ain't nice. When I fall asleep, I don't think I'll survive the night. Because they're waiting for me, they're looking for me every single night. They're driving me insane. Those men inside my brain. This is talking about targeting individuals with frequencies, voice to skull. 1979. Okay, target individuals, data collection on you. The AI will data collect inside your head. AI interface, preserving the beheadings. So that data collection from cell phone and internet, and when you shop using your credit card. This is all about, accessing you, accessing your head. preserving the beheading so that they can take your brain and download it directly into an AI. The one I always refer to, generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. This could even be referenced as the political mainframe we have today. Our parliament, the House of Representatives, the Congress, the parliaments in Europe. This could be generals gathered in their masses. Wouldn't that be what these people would be, like generals in charge of, their constituencies where they're voted in? Just like witches at black masses, evil minds that plot destruction. Isn't this what's going on right now with the premiers and the parliamentarians? That they're plotting destruction, our destruction, and the method of the destruction, sorcerers of death's construction. Sorcery, remember, is pharmacy or pharmacopoeia, vaccines, drugs. This is what this is going to be the means and the method to warfare. In the fields, the bodies burning. Why would you have bodies burning in a field? Could it be because they released some sort of virus or some sort of bioterroristic weaponry? As the war machine keeps turning, death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Imagine that. Isn't that what the TV's doing? Isn't this what the media's been doing? Isn't this what the radio has been doing? Isn't what the internet's doing? Poisoning their brainwashed minds. They can't see past their face mask that what they're doing is actually expediting them to the grave. That was done in 1970. Planned war with biological assaults using vaccines and other nanobiotech. 1970. See, another one here, up here in space. I'm looking down on you, my lasers trace. Everything you do, you think, you've private lies, think nothing of the kind, there is no true escape. I'm watching all the time, I'm made of metal, my circuits gleam, I'm a perpetual, I keep the country clean, meaning secure, protected. In other words, going after the loose ends. I'm elected electric spy, I'm protected electric eye. 1982 that came out. AI monitoring monitoring you, using frequency tech to monitor and spy on you, watching everything you do. When you look at the video AI is Killing Us, he shows you in that video that we have drone planes up in the ionosphere that can take over 1 million pictures a second, can spy on everything on the planet. Was this prophetic? Or was this the message that was being transmitted back and forth to the different cabals that were working on all this technology? See, we were completely derailed on every little front. And I'm pointing this out because, and again, for some of you who grew up in that era of time, will recognize what I just said. You can go back and see and remember that music and remember all the different music we listened to, all that shit they programmed us with. That's all it was nothing but shit, all of it. Even when you look at it, Under the Blue Lake, he talks about, love songs. Wants to know what love is. I want you to show it. That was all part of the propagating of the sexual revolution. And that didn't just include heterosexuality. That included all forms of sexuality. So a lot of the concepts of what is sexual today and the different forms of sexuality all came from that program that was released back then. And all of it was messed up. Back in the old days, when somebody had more than one wife and he had a concubine, he was considered well off because he had to take care of those women. Today, or back then, it was one of those things where you went on a hunt, sowed your seeds, if you would, shared your DNA. It was just unbelievable. And it was made to appear desirable to do this kind of behavior. because it was considered to be the norm. This is how the program went. This is how the program was moving. And it was a lot of wasted strength and time. And while we were pursuing this program, and it wasn't just a sex program, there was the other program of getting a buzz, getting high, ooh, opening your mind. Let me open my mind. Let my, be open, man. Be open. So that the AI can come on in and take you over. They didn't tell us that part of it. So you got to remember, that was the program. And that's where a lot of us today from that era are in. And we start examining everything. You start examining your life. Now things just are not adding up, not working, not getting resolved. Things are not the way you were told they were going to be. That's because everything on this shithole has been inverted. It's all been inverted. And it was all about derailing and exhausting our strength so that we wouldn't fight. We wouldn't have the capacity to fight or the will to fight. That's what it all boiled down to. And then once you got that generation out of the way, the rest are easy. The rest can be very easy maneuvered and manipulated. All you got to do is give them a toy. That's it, a toy. And have that toy take over their brain. I wonder what that could be. Oh, let me guess, a cell phone. Okay, I'll let it go at that. There's a lot there, a lot for you to consider. I always say at the end of these shows, because I try to present two sides of this. The one side, the shithole side, and the other side, the hope. See, we're not meant to live forever. And who really wants to live forever in this quagmire? And we're not coming back to it. That is another lie from the lower frequencies to keep you trapped here, or keep your thinking trapped here. We should be looking at evolving to a better and more perfect life form. And this planet is the obstacle. We have to break free from this planet in order to be able to evolve. And we have to break free of the consciousness of this planet in order for us to evolve. That's the way it is. This is why Jesus came, to show us the way in and the way out. He said he was the door. So I always tell everybody to go read the Gospels. And the reason why I tell everybody to go read the Gospels is because he is the one that gave us the most hope. He's the one that came down here, showed us the shit that was here, told us what was really real, gave us a view of the kingdom of heaven, and said that he could get us there. So I always encourage everybody to read the Gospels. Don't allow anybody to try to teach you anything first. Read it yourself. And the reason why I say this is because there have been so many teachers in the last 20, 30, and 40 years, and the majority of them are either from the papacy or from the Zionists or from the Masonics, and all they do is construe the Bible and screw it up every which way but loose. So now you got some sort of ideology or idealistic concept of a scriptural reference that may not have that meaning. So this is why I'm saying read it for yourself. Read what Jesus had to say. This is why I emphasize reading what Jesus had to say, and then continue throughout the whole New Testament so that you have an idea of what's up and down. Okay. And if you feel the need to go to a church, and again, I'm not proselytizing any specific church. I don't go to churches. I will listen to some ministers on the network, not always, but I do listen. And the only one that I shouldn't say the only one of the few I have heard that seems to have it on the button is Sherry at Three Hearts Church. So check her out. Again, you don't have to go there either. I'm not trying to push you there. Point is this: read the Gospels for yourself. Understand where we're at in this reality, where we're really at, how tenuous where we're standing. How this reset's not a reset. This is about, again, another level of de-evolution. When we have the most corrupt people on the planet wanting to dictate and rule this planet, we are in trouble. And we have given them power, and we have given them a false power. money. A piece of paper is what we are attributing everything to, which gives them power because they control the money. If we could somehow disregard money, they lose all their power. Think about that for a minute. But anyway, go read the Gospels, get what you can get out of them, learn, understand. Before you get into the Old Covenant, which is the Old Testament, we are of a new covenant, not an old one. So pay attention to the new covenant more, because that's where we are supposed to be. Anyway, I'll let you go on that as well. And until the next segment, to your health, and remember, by the grace of God, we are still here. Take care. See you the next show.